What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I am Rockin Robbie. Welcome to Rockin Robbie Live with, first of all, the Brianiac. What's up, Brian? How are you doing?
Hey.
Station?
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, of course.
Hello, Army.
You know, go Army. Also, we got Joe Corallo here. What's up, buddy? How are you doing?
Hello. I'm all right. How's everyone else doing?
We're doing good. Well, this is Joe's third time on the show, so I'm calling tonight Close Encounters of the Joe Kind. Get it? Because it's like 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? I don't know.
I didn't get that at first.
I had to explain it to Brian, and I was like, yeah, it may sound weird, Close Encounters of the Joe Kind, but whatever. It sounds fine to me. I like it. So, welcome, Joe. Last time we talked to you, we talked about your upcoming book, BECSTAR, which is now like 2 weeks away. It's like May 5th.
Yeah.
I have read it now. Brian has read it.
Ooh.
And I'll tell you this. I really like it. I think it's fan-freaking-tastic. The art is beautiful. It's gorgeous. Right? The coloring, everything, the composition, the layouts. It's great. But it's just a really great story with a really, I don't know, like it's got a charm to it. And it's like, she's like this like snarky kind of like badass, right? Kind of Han Solo-esque. And I think that's going to be very engaging to a lot of people. So I loved it, bro. I think you guys did a hell of a job. So check it out from Mad Cave Studios. Brian, what do you think?
Oh, yeah, I loved it as well. I liked I liked all the characters and the awesome. the way it was paced too. I thought was just really brilliant. A great first issue, right? I mean,
thank you. Yeah,
really did a good job. Introducing the enough of the characters to get you hooked, and then good kind of teaser at the end, or what do you call it, cliffhanger at the end, to like, gotta buy the next one, so yeah, it was really loved it. And the colors just popped off the page. I don't know, that was crazy. Loved it.
Well, thank you. No, Lorenzo's fantastic. I think I probably mentioned this last time, but we found him in that platform comics like anthology competition, and his story, he was the artist on the winning story, and we looked it over and we were just like, we should get this guy, and it worked out. So.
Yeah, the first issue looks great. I'm super excited, and I hope a lot of people out there in the PCP Army check it out because it's already guaranteed to be one of the best books of the week because I've read it and it's got the Robbie seal of approval, and it's even got the Brian seal of approval, which is worth pretty much average to a Robbie seal of approval, at least in the European market, Brian.
Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah. So
I'm here to lift you up, man.
Yeah. So check out BECSTAR, and the first thing I want to ask you, Joe, is because Brian was talking to me about a show he listened to. I think it was it a Perch show, Brian?
Yeah.
Okay, Joe, I just want to know why you hate New X-Men so much.
Here's the thing with that. I read it after it came out, but not that long after it came out, because I got into X-Men like buying the monthly comics with Astonishing X-Men. That was the first time when Whedon was doing it that I was like, all right, I'm in. And then after that, my buddy Jake, who I was getting those comics with, we were going to Fourth World Comics together to pick it up. He was like, I'm going back, man. And this run before it, this like Grant Morrison stuff, like I was like, all right, yeah. And then a buddy of mine was working at another comic shop I was visiting in New Jersey, and they had all the trades. So I was like, I'm picking it all up and consumed the whole thing. I later got the omnibus, which is what I have currently, signed by Frank Quitely. It's actually within arm's reach, kind of. Give me 1 second here. Because I got that sucker.
Nice.
And then let's see, I got the Frank Quitely signature right there.
Look at that.
That's awesome.
Right. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's been read a few times. It's in some it's in good condition here, but yeah, going back and going over it again. I think when it comes to new X-Men, when it comes to a lot of X-Men, there are things happening, and we go into it that he left before he was done, and there were other issues there too. But a lot of the conceit of what we were talking about was that Grant had failed to do what they originally set out to do in their outline. Because they print the outline and all the material like, oh, we're going to do this, this, and this. And it's not what they did in the comic. That's not to say that, you know, several issues in, you kind of go like, oh, fuck that, I'm going to do something else. But the kind of ideas, like, it was kind of shocking to read how flippant Grant was about like, forget all the old stuff. That's crap. I'm not going to read. Like, they made it a point to like be very like cantankerous and very like, you can't make me read the 90s stuff. I'm not going to do that. And, you know, X-Men wasn't cool since like Claremont and Byrne were doing it. But then when they're talking about it, they're conflating Byrne and Cockrum in the like outlet. Like it was very weird. It was very like you seem to like be approaching X-Men in like a hostile sort of way, and a way that was like, oh, I'm going to come in and I'm going to fix everything. I don't have to read it. I don't have to know about it. I know what sells, and it's these weird leather costumes. And
well, you don't hire Grant to not do Grant.
No, sure. You know, and I love, I have, you know, a lot of Grant stuff. The funny thing is, I'll say that about New X-Men, and I will defend Seven Soldiers of Victory.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh yeah. All right.
Because like, I don't care that I don't know what the hell's going on to the last two issues. It's great. But you know, I think there were a lot of like behind the scenes stuff. There's a lot of things that like the, you know, editorial changing hand, the constant turnover of artists on New X-Men. There's a lot of stuff, especially when you take it in all at once. Because I've binged read it the last couple of times I've read it, and yeah, the constant turnover of artists and you know, the whole like, you're touching on some things, then going in different directions. Like some of my favorite stuff in that is the Quentin Quire stuff. Like that's probably the high point for me.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, some of it, I love the Phil Jimenez art in it, but that ending, you know, is very, it's not as clever, the Magneto twist, as the last like couple of times I read it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like it really hits you over the head with it. Like it's very much like he's Magneto for like a while before the reveal. And then like when you have with Zorn standing there, well, it's Zorn. And he's got like the Magneto's right poster behind. I'm like, some of it's like, I really feel like you think I'm an idiot with how ham-fisted some of that stuff is. And then like the over the top, like, I get it. This is supposed to be like a critique on, you know, the old guard revolutionaries and the new guard, and you know, some of that, but it's not handled as well. You know, as I've gotten older and have gone back and read it again, it's just like stuff like that ends up being a lot sloppier than I remember it. And some of that is the constant turnover in artists and the way Grant approached it. There were other behind the scenes issues of like Grant holding on to scripts as long as possible so no one could touch it, like editorially, and things like that. And it works if you're Grant doing something like Seven Soldiers of Victory or Doom Patrol or Animal Man or stuff that doesn't have a much broader impact. But when you're doing that on a flagship book, that's one of your like the golden goose for a while, for decades at Marvel, was that book. That's where it ends up, I think, maybe not playing out exactly how you want it. For some reason, it worked. It's like, I guess it worked better with something like Justice League, but they also weren't trying to do those kind of subversions of like a Zorn Magneto thing in something like Justice League. So yeah, it's one of those things that, because I read that and I also read Astonishing and Chuck Austin's run, all very close together.
Oh.
And I'll say, after reading them all together, like in close, like rapid fire over the summer, I really don't think Chuck Austin was treated fairly, because in hindsight, now that we're like a couple of decades away from that stuff, Chuck Austin's run is not that much worse than what Joss and Grant were doing at the time. And it's this weird, like Chuck has become this like vilified figure that everyone's just like, this is the worst X-Men run ever. I have definitely read way worse X-Men comics.
Yeah, right.
Way worse.
I just remember at the time being really pissed that they replaced Joe Casey, because I was really liking his stuff.
Oh yeah,
I've always liked Joe Casey. He's always that guy that like he gets a break and then like 8 issues later they just pull the plug and you're just like, poor guy.
Yeah.
But,
I'm
Chuck Austin, I really like Chuck Austin's U.S. War Machine, like that first 12 issue thing. Like, I don't know why. Maybe I should go back and reread it, because I was like early 20s when I read that for the first time. I remember when New X-Men came out and like the Zorn reveal, right? Like it took us all by surprise, and we all thought it was super clever, because we were like, oh, he healed the Nano Sentinels. That's how. And oh, he's using magnetic powers. Oh, that kind of makes sense. I recently started a reread, because we're eventually bringing back Comics Revisited, and that's the first thing that we're doing is New X-Men. And so I started it, and I read the whole, all the way through all the Cassandra Nova stuff, right? And the germ-free generation. Really thought it held up, you know, for me. I remember it's Cordy, right? Igor Cordy, right? His work
comes after Quietly.
It felt very kind of rushed. He came in and it seemed like, there's a lot of artistic change. But if you look at his work on a book like Cable, in which he had time, like it's like miles apart, you know? So
no, absolutely. I think he got the short end of the stick on his work on New X-Men, which is a shame, because that was a more high profile gig and more people got their opinions on him based on that over his other cleaner work.
Yeah, absolutely. So I overall still like New X-Men. I say it's my favorite X-Men run, but I was at the time, we got to remember too that the 90s stuff, we look back on it and I think it's fun. Like Fatal Attractions era, Age of Apocalypse, they're not like very well made, executed comics. You know, they're kind of, you know, for their time, they're, you know, they are what they are. And I like that stuff, and I like going back to it. So I felt refreshed that, oh, now Grant Morrison's involved and there's a new direction, and it's a little bit more like, I remember Grant saying in one of their things that like, it's crazy that the X-Men comic didn't look or feel like the movie when the movie came out. He felt like Quesada and them that hadn't, or this was at the turnover, right? This was when Quesada was taking over. But Grant just felt like they didn't like capitalize on the success of the X-Men movie, you know? And I think that's still the case. Like, why do we not see an ad or a trailer for Marvel's next comic event before the next MCU film? You know, why do we not see that kind of stuff? Like that.
No, I think that's true. It was weird, but there's other elements too, like Zorn's powers when they like free Zorn and all that. Like it makes literally no sense. It does not stand up to an ounce of scrutiny. Like, so Magneto created this entire jail and a backstory to this jail and all of these people who work there to hold him hostage because he knew they were going to rescue him. And then how did Professor X and Jean and Emma never once scan his mind to figure out it was Magneto? Like, there's just all these things that it's like, this does not hold up in terms of a reveal. And it's like, thinking about it more, it was like, oh, the reveal was so shocking because it was completely nonsensical. less than it was less that, oh, all these pieces are here that I missed, and more like, oh, they just pulled this out of their ass and nothing about this makes any sense. And that's, I think, part of what chips away at its legacy over decades.
I do like how Hickman and company are pulling a lot of stuff from that run. And there's a legacy to that run. You know, Quentin Quire, like you mentioned, Phantom X, which is one of Brian's favorites.
I love him, especially in Uncanny X-Force. I thought Phantom X was great. I will say with the Quentin Quire stuff, though, I hate how people handle Quentin Quire after Grant. I think that was a wonderful creation of Grant's. And again, one of the highlights of that run for me. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills every time I read other people doing Quentin Quire, because the whole point of this character was he had a mental breakdown. That's why he dyed his hair pink and went like crazy and did all of that. But now everyone interprets him as just being in the state of having had that mental breakdown, and not as the character he was before that or a new character since then. They're just like it. Everyone's taking the wrong lessons from that run, and it's infuriating.
Well, have you been reading the recent one, the recent X-Force?
I've read. I'm not all caught up to date, but I've read some of it. I'm up to date on like random ones. I'm up to date on the main X-Men title, Cable, Wolverine, maybe one or two others, but yeah.
Okay, because the recent X-Force ones cover him very, very closely on him, and I think they're pretty solid. And I think they're kind of speaking to what you were talking about there. They really are working on that aspect of his character. I got a pretty cool Ramon Villalobos sketch of Quentin Quire. I'll have to pull that out.
I would love to see that, but I don't understand why they don't change him aesthetically, because he shouldn't look like that. That was a dark time. Why would Quentin want to stay to, like, why would you stick to, oh, I want to look like I did at the darkest time of my life? You know, it's like Britney Spears doesn't hang out with her shaved head all the umbrella. You know, it's like, it's those kind of things that are frustrating and show it to me a lack of care and understanding of these characters and these stories. And I wish, if people were tackling them, that that they would take that, and instead of taking the character at face value, at, oh, I like this cool thing, that they would dive in and try to understand the character when moving forward and what would be the logical next step, instead of, oh, he looks cool with pink hair, I'll keep pink hair. To me, that's lazy.
Yeah,
I thought Brian would retort. Okay, there we go.
No, I know what you mean, but sometimes I think they keep stuff like that just to keep them easily recognizable in the comics and stuff like that.
To sell an action figure, right?
Associated with that look, but
that's
not a good reason though.
But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with like people just constantly bringing back Storm's mohawk just because they like it. You know, and it's not necessarily a story reason. They're just like, oh, every few years we just get Mohawk Storm because someone likes Mohawk Storm. You know, that kind of stuff. That's again, all these like things that kind of chip away at the X-Men legacy. They really need, like, I don't know. I feel like when it comes to editorial and stuff like that's not the creators' jobs. The creators should be able to throw whatever the hell they want at editorial. They're not their creations. It's owned by a corporation. It's up to the editors to be like, no, we don't do that. Like, we just did Mohawk Storm the other day, or nope, that's what this character is. You know, we need you to interpret the character this way. And I think the frustrating thing for X-Men in particular for the past couple of decades, really, like past like 15 years, has been a lot of, we'll try something and then cancel it, bring in a new team, whatever you want, try something, and it's felt like that. And then we got this like blip with House of X Powers of 10, and now we have a very uneven ship where it feels like there are some people sticking tight to something and other people that are like, meh.
Yeah.
And it's a frustrating time to be an X fan.
Is it okay? Because I see more excitement today from the community about X-Men, regardless of what level of excitement it is, right? Like more today than there was in the several years before that. I felt like there was this waning of interest, and it really kind of started, I think, with the Fraction and Gillen stuff.
Sure.
And then that goes into the Bendis stuff, and the Bendis stuff just kind of, I think, meandered around a little bit too long. And that's what, to me, that's what Bendis does now. Is his stories used to have like a punchiness to them, and they used to move real quick, and things would happen, and they were still super decompressed. But now it's just like if you read the newest issue of Justice League, you got 20 pages of Justice League by Bendis, and then you got 10 pages of Justice League Dark by Ram V. And Ram V does so much more in those 10 pages than Bendis does in the 20. And and it's like, man, that's crazy. I don't even remember where we were getting from that. Oh yeah, but the interest in X-Men just kind of waned, and it brought interest back. And now people are getting really kind of frustrated. And it's it's like we're sold the idea that you got everything's connected. You got to read it all. It's going to make one big puzzle piece, right? Yeah. And I think that maybe it would just be a better read just reading the Hickman stuff, right? Or any other bits that you like. Like I do like X-Force. I really like Marauders a lot.
Sure.
Oh, I love Marauders.
So, and I know I'm loving Wolverine. Really loving Wolverine. Of course, they brought in Maverick. So I was just like sold. Sure. And Dracula. So whatever.
Yes. No, but that's the problem is they bloated the line way too fast.
Yes.
I remember talking to a lot of people and being like, I sure hope there's no more than like 4 to 6 books for a while, because they gotta pare it down and they can't help themselves.
Yeah, they keep coming with more.
Yeah, it's too much. And then they're like, oh, you don't have to read all of them. And then a few months go by and they're like, 10 of Swords ties into all of them. And you're like,
yeah.
Okay, so I don't have to read them all, or I do? It's like, oh, now you don't have to read them all again. Oh, the Hellfire Gala is coming up. Now you have to read them all again. And it's like, all right, like, so you want me to read them all, but you don't. And then it's a very frustrating experience. And the books are tonally different enough that it's creating angry fans needlessly. Like you are creating it's that whole thing from Batman 89, you made me first kind of thing of you're making people feel like, okay, like let's say I'm going to pull books on two opposite sides of like the spectrum here. Like you really like Ben Percy on Wolverine, and maybe you really don't like a Leia Williams X Factor or vice versa.
Yeah.
And you're forcing those fans, if they want to be on top of an event, to read stuff that's the exact opposite of what they're into, and you're creating needlessly frustrated fans. Like the core group of people who are buying the whole line is very small. And to force someone who likes a silly X Factor book to buy a like gory Wolverine book or vice versa is just creating needless conflict.
Yeah. And it's like, you wonder, do these people even listen? Like one of the number one things when people get asked what they hate about the industry right now, or, over the last several years, decades even, they'll be like, oh, I'm tired of all the crossovers and events. Right. Okay. But they keep doing them. But then on the other hand, they keep doing them because they sell. Like there was a boost. Money, right? There was a boost in those X titles for, whether or not they sold off the shelves doesn't matter to Marvel or Diamond. You know what I'm saying? They got those things out of the door. They're done. They're like, all right, good luck selling those. And it happens. Like we got stuck with so many issues of, in particular, X Factor. Because people would just be like, oh, I don't. And then they come back later on and they're like, oh, I did need everything. And then at the same time, you read the book and you're like, maybe you did, maybe you don't. I don't. It's weird. Yeah. I like how they're collecting them in hardcovers because they got Hoxpox in that deluxe edition, and then it's almost as if because they're putting out a Hickman X-Men run, and then it's almost like just get the Hickman book, then get the big Ten of Swords omnibus, and then get the inevitable Hellfire Gala omnibus, and maybe it better collected. But
the thing I hate about that mapping though is all those who have OCD that organize their shelves. You have a nice Hoxpox hardcover, then you're going to have the Hickman X-Men omnibus, which leaves out Ten of Swords, and then you have the Ten of Swords oversized hardcover. So now you're like, where do I chronologically? I don't. Do I put this here, and then I have to read this, and then put it back down, and then read the like. I kind of wish they just did the hardcover before Ten of Swords, and then an oversized hardcover for after, because that's just so annoying. I feel like it's designed to never be just read. You'd have to. It's designed to read, put it down, read another book, come back. That's frustrating to me.
That's annoying. That is super annoying. I hate that. Like there's like a Justice League Dark hardcover or trade that's like that. Like in the middle of it, it's like, now go read the Wonder Woman Justice League Dark crossover Witching Hour, and you're like, what? I got to stop the trade in the middle to go get another trade. What if you just went? You're like let's say you're like an 18-year-old, 17-year-old. You just got a little bit of money, and you go out and you get some cool things, and you buy this Justice League Dark, and you read like 2 issues into it, and they're like, oh, now go to this one, and you're like, homie, I just spent my last $20 on this trade. Damn. Yeah,
it's just like how they did the Batman Cape Crusader soft covers, and they leave out a Death in the Family because they can make the money on that trade. So it's just like it just skips those 4 issues.
Yeah,
it's like just if you put it in that, you'd probably sell more of them.
And then they have they'll have like a page or something be like, meanwhile, Jason Todd is murdered by the Joker.
Yeah.
Continuing on.
It's like, what? It's just madness. But it's all madness. I hate it all. I just wish it was like, just don't have them all come together with these X titles. I mean, just like during those really dark times for like 15 years in X-Men, when it was like borderline unreadable, and we had a Jeff Lemire run that was completely forgotten. That's how hard it was to write X-Men for a while. That one of the best guys in the industry wrote a completely unforgettable run of X-Men. Which again shows a lot of it's editorial. It's not the fault of a lot of these creators. I was able to navigate most of that through Peter David on X Factor for a long time, because that book was always like a steady ship. It's like, this is never the best book of the month. It's far from the worst book of the month. And I'm like, I can just navigate X-Men this way and poke around whenever something cool happens. Like, oh, Uncanny X-Force. Okay, I'll check that out. And
Peter David has made a whole career out of just being consistently just even, you know, right? Like it's always just, it's like you described it right. I've said that so many freaking times. But his Star Trek books are really good. Trust me. Anyway.
Yeah, no, but it's crazy that that this has happened, and then it's that, and again, this has nothing to do with the creators involved. The constant resets and number ones, and we're getting an X-Men number 1 again already, and and then it feels like Marvel's going back to that old thing. I think Axel's the one who really did it. Was we're going to announce books that we know are miniseries, but we're not going to tell stores that, and then we're going to cancel the book even though it was a miniseries.
Yeah.
So like Way of X, there's no way that's an ongoing. There's no way.
No way. That's a miniseries for sure, right?
Yeah, but they're not billing it as a miniseries.
I know, they never do. Hardly anybody wants to do that. It's almost like, because of people, I think, all I can speak of is my experience as a retailer. And I've been doing this for a long time, but like most people, if they know it's a miniseries, they're like, well, I'll just wait for the trade. And I'm like, no. First of all, if it's an indie miniseries, don't wait for the trade. you need to support those.
Yeah.
Wait for a Marvel trade. That's fine. They're going to crank those out, whatever. So maybe that's a part of it. And, that's another thing. What do people say? They always hate all the constant relaunches, all the new number ones, but they keep doing them. But the sales are there. But are they really? It's so weird. I feel like they're just, I think they're just hanging on quarter by quarter. You know what I'm saying? And that's why Marvel does an event every quarter. They just finished King in Black. Heroes Reborn is about to start. When that's over, it's going to be Extreme Carnage and the Hellfire Gala. And then, the X-Men, that's their own freaking thing. So even if there's a big, massive line-wide event, the X-Men can still have their own thing too. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's unsustainable. You can't be talking about this sinister event when we haven't even gotten to the Chameleon Conspiracy, which isn't for another month and a half or over a month. It starts in June. Yeah. And they're already that's old news. We're all on board with the this sinister event. And it's so now we're going to be coming into June cold on an event no one's going to care about or talk about because they stopped advertising it for months by the time we got there.
Yeah.
That's it. It's mind-boggling. And then again, with all these events, the long-term problem is when you engineer a situation where you're in constant events, you are training your audience to not buy your non-event books because you're telling them, look, these are the essential books, and there's a lot of essential books. You're training your audience to not give these other books a chance, and then you create a self-fulfilling prophecy where it's oh, we had to cancel that book. No one bought this book, and it's no shit, they didn't buy it. You told them it's not important by virtue of saying all of these other things are more important.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny though. I'm grateful when a monthly book I'm reading doesn't make it into one of the events.
Yeah, because a lot of writers are too.
Oh yeah, right.
Well, it's so disruptive. I think we talked about it the last time. I do like Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil run, and then those King in Black ones hit, and I mean, they weren't the worst things I've ever read, but it was just kind of okay, let's get back to how this main storyline that they've been working on for the past couple months.
Yeah, and now with King in Black over. Again, this is another problem. This is a similar problem to things like how they ended New X-Men with the Magneto reveal and killing Jean Grey and all of that. You end King in Black, and it's I read King in Black. I enjoyed the experience of reading the event. It was one of the more this is just a dumb, fun kind of thing. Here's the problem, though. We're all now stuck in this world after. We are now stuck in a world where Eddie Brock slammed, Silver Surfer's surfboard and just stole Mjolnir and slammed them together to create an axe. And he's just the most powerful thing ever. And it's okay, but now we're stuck with that. Now he's the King in Black. Now all these things and these, you broken. You basically mid-maxed Eddie Brock and created this way overpowered character, and now it's oh well, here we go. We're left with this, and there's this is it's one of those things where again it's it doesn't feel like there's enough thought anymore into what happens next, what happens later.
Yeah, I was actually we had a small con here a couple weeks ago, and Jim Shooter was here, and I got to do the panel with him. Awesome. And I had met him before, but this was the first time I got to spend a lot of time with him and chat. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about obviously a lot of the questions at the panel are involving Secret Wars, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, the first thing about Secret Wars was we're not going to do it if it doesn't actually affect the books.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was really, honestly, everybody always promises change at the end of an event. This is going to be the game-changing Marvel event of your life. And Secret Wars kind of was. She-Hulk was a member of the Fantastic Four, and then Spider-Man had the black costume that eventually gave us Venom, which eventually gave us Donny Cates' Marvel career. you know, and it's all that. I just really like that. I don't feel like that's, I mean, I get that they're always selling the illusion of change, right? It's like a James Bond Batman scenario where you still want the same thing. The audience wants more of the same, but at the same time, we want to feel like it's sort of changing. I don't know. I don't know how you balance that. You're also, by the way, if you didn't know, Joe is not just a writer of great books like BECSTAR and She Said Destroy. He's also a very accomplished editor. Lost on Planet Earth, all the anthologies, Station, right?
Thank you.
So it just really pisses you off how just messy it seems editorially right now, doesn't it? I get that vibe off of you.
Yeah, it's it drives me crazy. It's just like just have some forethought into this, and I get it. I understand. It's a lot of people they're overworked. They're working on way too many books. Books get canceled left and right. You could plan things out just to have people higher up be like, oh, scratch that. And now it's like, well, what do? We were setting this up, and where does this go? And it's like, it's a lot of moving parts. But maybe if that's the case, you pare down the line to a point where you can handle it instead of being like, I don't know what to do anymore. Everything's out of control. And it's like, if you can't afford to have more editors, you trim the line down and make it so that way this will work. Because in the long run, you're going to make more money selling comics people want to buy.
Yeah.
And when you're inundated with events, like here's a perfect example. I skipped out on Absolute Carnage and I was like, I'll just wait for like the trade or the collection or anything. Then when I found out it was just setting up for another event, I never went back. I read King in Black. I didn't need to read Absolute Carnage. I was just fine reading King in Black. That's a sale Marvel is never going to get from me. And they're never going to get from a lot of people. Yeah. Because a lot of people did exactly what I did. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I missed out on those events.
Yeah.
I actually like Absolute Carnage. I think Absolute Carnage was better than King in Black, but that's just me.
That's fine. And it might be, but it's not. There are way too many other things I would rather pick up at this point.
Well, at the end of Absolute Carnage, I even remember saying, well, the only thing that sucked about Absolute Carnage to me was the fact that all it was a stepping stone to an event. So why was this an event? This could have just been the next issues of Venom. And like, and I all the time, because people are like, oh, I hate, this person did this event. This person did this event. I'm like, yo, I really think like War of the Realms. I was like, yo, I really don't think Jason Aaron pitched War of the Realms. I think he pitched the end of his Thor story. And I think somebody was like, we should make an event out of this.
Yeah.
With all these, I doubt Jason Aaron walked into the room and was like, yo, imagine 30 tie-ins to the,
Well, it's funny. You listen to enough interviews with creators and it's disturbing. Someone should probably make some sort of, someone's got to do something where they just make a video collecting
like a
all
supercut.
Supercut. I don't know why I couldn't think of supercut, but make a supercut of all the creators in interviews who've said, I pitched this story, and then the editor came up to me and was like, "What if we made it an event? What if we made it bigger?" And there are countless writers out there in interviews who are like, yeah, and the editorial said, let's make it bigger. That's also the Hellfire Gala was like, let's make it bigger. 10 of Swords, let's make it bigger. And these are not creating situations where people are happy with their purchases. Eventually, you're creating such an unstable environment. I mean, you as someone in retail, how many customers do you have when it comes to Big Two comics specifically, who look like on some days they are just waiting for an excuse to be like, I'm out, I'm done. It's like, that's not a sustainable business model. And that's way too many people. And the problem is there's too much of an attitude from the Big Two of, And I'm not saying this isn't like reflective of the companies. This isn't reflective of creators or whatever. But this attitude that's sort of been cultivated, maybe some of it's editorial, some of it might be other retailers and things like that, of you'll come back. You're just saying you're going to quit and then you'll come right back. And it's like, no, people do just quit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It gets wearing on those. I mean, because like, I don't know, I've gotten to the point where a lot of the events, like Ten of Swords was different because, you know, I mean, they had a numbered chronological thing where it kind of like went through, and that made it a little easier to follow, you know. But most of those events, like I'd like occasionally I'll get an event, but I try to avoid all the other side stuff because I've been burned so many times that I just like, what did I, you know, I just, you know, I don't know, just wasting my time. But but yeah, because like even the ones that I like that I remember, they still had these, you know, just bloated, you know, package deals that came with them that were just, just very worrying. I'm one of those people that's gone up to Robbie and said, you know, I'm about, you know, ready to be done with that. So but
I mean,
and it's my job to talk him down. Crazy. I'm like, no, bro, trust me, just drop some of these other ones. And I tell Brian all the time, I'm like, don't get this. But Brian is a very enthusiastic fan. He comes in, he wants to talk about the books he's read. He loves talking about what he's into. But I do know those customers where sometimes I want to look at him and be like, bro, you should just quit. Like when you know somebody that's in a bad relationship, and you just want to be like, yo.
Well, I think there's some people that'll stick with it because maybe this is bad, but I don't know. I mean, it gives them something to complain about and feel better about, you know, something.
Yeah, you know somebody like that, Brian. We know somebody like that. He gets on Brian's nerves so much.
It's like if I don't like something, I just stop it. Like because there's other stuff out there that I like that I'm going to spend time with, you know. But I don't know. Some people, like, you can see them stick with things for way too long.
And speaking of sticking with things for way too long, so Brian Michael Bendis, when it came to like, you know, Superman. Like this is another thing that just really, it makes you feel bad and want to, it makes you want to go like, is there like a place I can volunteer to help people who are so disenchanted by comics? Because when they announced Brian was off that book, the overwhelming response was, oh, great. I'm so glad he's gone. That's bad. It's bad when like reasonable people are like excited that someone's off a book. That's a bad place for a community to be. And I mean, and it was universal. I mean, I was talking to a creator collaborator on the phone today. And she was just like, yeah, I picked up those first couple of Bendis Supermans and I was done. That was it. You know? and this is, and again, it's beyond like, you know, people try to turn some of this stuff into it being about like, you know, ideologies or something even bigger. But it's like, it's nothing to do with that. People just hated this book. They hated what he did to John Kent. I mean, across the board, it's just like, and then their big announcement today is, I hope you're not done hating us because John Kent's got a book. It's like, what's happening?
There's a difference, though, Joe, I think. And it's because Bendis came in and interrupted what a lot of people were loving as a very strong run on Superman with Jonathan, the Peter Tomasi one, right?
I agree.
A lot of people
got that Super Sons omnibus here.
Oh, right.
And I'm getting that Superman omnibus as soon as that's out.
So that was a great run that really focused on that relationship. And then it was just torn from us in a very cliche story that we've seen over and over again. He cabled Jonathan Kent. You know, they even did this to Franklin Richards when he came back in the 90s, the Psylord, which, by the way, as a 13-year-old, I thought that was so badass. I was like, Psylord? I want to be Psylord. So, and then I think Bendis's run started strong enough. And then it was just dull. It was boring. I was one of those guys. I was like, I'm glad because I feel like in order for DC to be successful, your top books need to be good, right? Like you got to have a good Superman book, you got to have good Batman books, you got to have a good. I don't know if Wonder Woman is so essential, but now I think she's becoming more essential because of the brand recognition from the movies.
Yeah.
Right, Alistair. Anyway, have you seen Wonder Woman 84?
I did see it. I wasn't that thrilled by it. They're off the bat. Like once I realized there were clearly just 2 intro scenes that they just kept in the movie, I was like, oh, it's going to be one of those movies where the director's just like, they'll let me do anything. And it's like, oh right. No. But yeah, it kills me because Wonder Woman is a character I absolutely love. I was enjoying, like, that's another thing too. I was enjoying the Mariko Tamaki stuff. And then that got interrupted. And I still got to catch up on what's happening now. I love Becky and Michael as people. I've bought plenty of things that Becky's done over the years, including some of those like early zines nice. She was doing. But when I read Immortal Wonder Woman, the first issue, I was like, wait a minute, this is Wonder Woman Dead Earth. She's even got Bruce's belt.
Yeah.
Did she? I haven't read it.
Yeah. I was like, is there no one communicating between these departments in any way? Because I get it. The reason this happens is because one was under Black Label and the other was the main Wonder Woman line. But I'm like, this is crazy that they're doing the same story months apart. Not obviously not exactly the same, but that you have elements as strong as, you know, Bruce is dead and I'm wearing his utility belt in both stories months apart, was like, you need someone to catch those things.
Yes.
Like that, you know, that's frustrating to me. I don't understand why you can, you know, do stuff like that, especially when we're talking about Wonder Woman being quite possibly the single most iconic superheroine to exist in all of space and time.
That we know of.
Yes, that we know of here on Earth. But that's, I left it at possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
For that reason. But yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, come on. Like, you couldn't have someone go like, oh, you know, we did the wearing Bruce's belt thing and this other thing. Could we maybe do something else? No one?
Before we get back to Wonder Woman, to finish my thought on the I think people are actually responding better to this Jonathan Kent book.
Sure.
Because there's still going to be Philip Kennedy Johnson's run, which I'm liking his stuff so far. And of course it's just a palate cleanser, you know, for me.
Sure. Yeah.
And but it's Tom Taylor. And like Tom Taylor has really started, and I was like, well, he's got to be just a couple of announcements away from a big book, right? And so I was really super excited because his Nightwing run could be the start of a classic if they continue to like do what they're doing in just 2 issues. I think he's a really talented writer that I wrote off pretty early on because I was like, oh, he just writes that Injustice book. You know?
Yeah, I really liked the Suicide Squad run before this.
Oh, it was great, wasn't it?
Good stuff on he's doing good stuff on Nightwing. So I'm more on board with seeing what he does with Jonathan Kent here. It's like, I don't like that we still have to deal with this aged up Jonathan Kent, but Tom Taylor doing it, I'm a fan. So I'm willing to, you know, give it a shot for a little while.
At least they brought back Super Sons for 7 issues, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask, is that Super Sons they brought back? Is that with the aged up?
No,
Kent, or
it's
is
set.
That, oh, okay.
It's set back in the day.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah, because I do want to pick that one up because that was
back in the day, like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
back in the day. Yeah.
That was a crazy dynamic that's gone now. That Damian Jonathan thing, you know, that was such a cool. It would have been great to see that develop over years and years from many different creators, I think.
And absolutely would have been, but this is the problem. A lot of these successes are found on accident.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just get rid of them, and they don't realize that they've undermined a brilliant idea. Like, if they didn't undermine that, that could have been a potential cash cow for a while. This could have turned into an evergreen thing, you know, like a Walking Dead for them, with like, you know, YA kind of accessible book that's just on the shelves that, you know, adults and kids alike are excited to go to the shop and pick up. This could have spun out into an animated series. I mean, it still could, but, you know, they are preventing themselves from making as much money as they can, which is weird when you're a giant corporation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's the thing that kills me, because so many of these things that are frustrating are like, I'm frustrated because if you are a bloodthirsty, all in it for yourself capitalist corporation, you should be doing this, and you're not even doing that. Like, that's the parts that are like,
they don't let these books grow. You know, like something like look at Starman. That wouldn't happen today. That book would be canceled within 6 to 12 issues. You know,
Sandman would have been canceled at issue 6.
Yeah. Oh, I said Sandman. I didn't even mean Sandman. I meant Starman. But
no, you said Starman, but I'm saying like Sandman would have been canceled before that issue 8 where they bring in Death.
Yeah, because that's where it takes that long to get to gel it together.
Yeah, and same thing though with Starman. Yeah, absolutely. I love Starman. That could never happen today. And but the thing too with that is, that's another thing where they should have Starman in print, and they won't keep it in print.
I know. That's so frustrating, because I tell so many customers about it, and they're like, "Well, can you get it for me?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah,
no,
you know, say another thing too. Yeah, and another thing. But like, it's like not for nothing, but one thing that kills me about, I'm picking on DC, but I love DC. I have spent an embarrassing amount of money on DC Comics. I never want to find out how much money I spent on DC Comics and how much time of my life, like the amount of like literal years of my life that could probably be ticked off on reading DC Comics. I never want to find that out. But
I agree.
Right? Like, so I am a loyal fan. I own pages. I own a Starman page. I own Wonder Woman page. I own a lot of this stuff. I put a lot into this. So I feel like I've earned the right to say this because I spent so much money and time on this. But it kills me that DC acts often like they're ashamed of the pre-crisis stuff. Like outright ashamed, because this stuff is like not in print, or it's barely in print, or it's collected in like weird ways. Like, oh, no one's going to want to read 70s Batman, so let's just collect the Neil Adams issues, because
they do it by artists. Right.
Yeah, it's like, who's going to want an Irv Novick collection, you know? And it's like, no, people want, I would prefer you just put out, like, how do you not, like, how is there not Bronze Age Batman and Superman omnibuses and, like, soft covers in chronological order? How?
And whenever they do start, they stop. They never complete it, and they print it in weird. I remember getting the Neil Adams run. I was like, finally, I can read these Denny O'Neil 70s Batman run, and they were it was just the Neil Adams, and I was like, well, that kind of sucks. I want to read it all. Like when you're growing up, you're like, I want to read it all.
Yeah.
You can't buy the issues, but now they want to push you to their digital service. I don't know how much content as far as like, I don't even know how far back that, like, do they have every single issue of Golden Age Superman? Do they have the Jack Kirby Green Arrow? You know, do they have these things that we might want to check out?
Yeah. If you skip the, if you just do the Neil Adams, then you skip the 10-eyed man,
You skip so much by just doing the Neil Adams stuff.
I was looking at that actually, like, I know he's done a lot on there, but like he did mostly covers for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Irv Novick at that time was doing almost all the interiors. So I mean, it's kind of like, I know it's well celebrated how he did the costume and the, you know, the action and the way, you know, his style and everything, but it's still like it's not a whole lot in a way.
No. And Irv Novick is good, and Dick Giordano inked a lot of him, and like it's so frustrating because like the Raja Ghul saga, which is 4 issues, I consider it 5 because I think you should count Detective 411 with the appearance of Talia. But if you get these collections, one part of that 4-part Raja Ghul saga was drawn by Irv Novick, so it's not in it.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the Doug Menck run pre-Crisis Batman is not collected.
That's crazy because there's really good stuff in that.
Yeah, there's
because that's when it turned 400 too, right? I mean that was around 400 because that issue was brilliant. And because that's crazy.
It's insane. The original Jason Todd becoming Robin. Jason Todd introduced with Jerry Conway, but you know when Detective, I think it's 535, where he fights Crazy Quilt for the first time as Robin. That's collected in some random collections, but you can't just buy, oh, here's that run and here are all the soft covers or trades of that. They did a hardcover set of the Jerry Conway run, which I can't even believe they did that. But again, it's like there's no pop and circumstance, there's no celebration of it. You'd have to dig to find some of these stories because no one talks about them. Yeah, and it's because they're so ashamed of this pre-crisis stuff.
Yeah, which doesn't make any sense. I don't know. It's like I don't know, it just feels like a lot of the people that they end up with in their corporate, you know, decision making thing just really I don't feel like comic fans are overly unique, but I mean there's things that we're looking for. And they seem to be pretty apparent. Like, you know, I mean, if we want to read a run, we want all the issues in the run.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not like
it's not rocket science.
Yeah, even if it might be kind of a throwaway, you want to know that it was a throwaway. You don't want to sit there and go, well, I have no idea what happened. I mean,
but that's part of the pacing of a run.
Right.
It feels earned when you go through some, you know, issues that maybe aren't the greatest, but then it's that pacing. It paces out the action. It gets you where you got to be, so the story has some kind of impact. I mean, what was it, the Spider-Man story, the Ditko Spider-Man, was it 31, 32, 33, where it's Aunt May's blood's like poisoned and he's got to stop Doc Ock, and that story. It's the one with the famous cover of him and the water is coming down and all that. And he's thinking of Aunt May and Uncle Ben and that he needs to survive so he can, you know, save his aunt. If you just read those 3 issues, that's one thing. If you read the run up until then it has weight to it.
Yeah.
You know, and too often DC, I mean, Marvel does this too, obviously, but it took a while for them to start doing more of these like omnibuses and these full run kind of collections. And that's how you get people to actually enjoy these runs. If you give someone a trade of the Dark Phoenix saga, it's not going to have the same impact as if they started from Giant Size X-Men #1.
Absolutely not. No. And plus, it's only right.
Yeah, Kraven's Last Hunt doesn't have the same weight to it if you didn't read a ton of issues of, you know, Peter and MJ slowly getting together.
Yeah. If you only have a cursory understanding of Spider-Man, Kraven's Last Hunt might be really confusing, actually.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's like a super dark Spider-Man story, and, you know, it's not... it's not what most people would associate with Spider-Man, so...
And on top of that, so many of the things that are considered the standards that everyone should read are these gritty deconstructions of these characters. And Robbie, I'm sure you can help me with this here, because, like, part of the impact you get from something like, let's just say, The Dark Knight Returns, for example, is because that's a deconstruction of a character, or it's this character that's just like pushed to the brink and has to come back.
Yeah.
The impact to that story, where it makes sense and it means something, is because we've read a lot of stuff about this character before he got there. We knew the character before that. We knew the Len Wein and the Denny O'Neil and the Marv Wolfman and the Jerry Conway and the Doug Mank attempts at this character. So then when you get to Frank, it's like, okay, this has a punch to it.
Yes.
But how many people come into, a shop and go like, I just wanted to start getting into comics. Let me get Dark Knight Returns. And do you have a lot of other deconstructions that I'm really not going to get the impact from? Maybe The Killing Joke, Watchmen.
It's like, don't give somebody Watchmen if they're not if they're not knowledgeable about superheroes and how they work.
That might be
right.
One of the absolute worst starter comics possible.
Oh, absolutely. Batman works so well. Dark Knight Returns works so well because most people have an understanding of who Bruce Wayne is, of what Batman is and what he represents, whether it's the movies or not, like a cartoon, like people that just, if all you knew was the Adam West Batman, Dark Knight Returns would blow your mind, and just the same way the 89 Batman did. Right.
Yeah.
And, but like, I always tell people to start with Batman Year One, because most people want something superhero-y. Batman's kind of known to them. And Batman Year One, I think, is just 4 brilliant issues that cover a lot of material.
Sure.
But yeah, Dark Knight Returns, I hear a lot. And then there are tons of people that have come in looking for the Watchmen. Like, I've heard about the Watchmen. I want to read it. Most people find that so daunting. Like if they're not used to reading comics, used to reading superhero fiction, they get bogged down pretty early in the Watchmen. It's like if you're in church and you're a kid and you're like, hey, I really want to be a biblical scholar. I'm going to read through the whole Bible. And then you get to Leviticus and you just kind of like stop, And so, you're like, I didn't realize it was just going to be a bunch of names and rules. But like, not that I know any of that from personal experience. I do. That's what happens. You can't read it straight through. But maybe that's why they don't do the big collections. For the average, a lot of the average reader probably isn't concerned with pre-crisis DC, right? But there is a market for it. And Marvel does their collections a lot better than DC, I think. And they got to be extra crushing to you being such a DC head.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the problem. Marvel does, and the quality of their omnibuses tend to be better. They usually stay open. Even from the first few pages, which a lot of DC ones don't stay open till you're like 50, 60, 70 pages in. But DC's omnibuses have gotten a lot better, though. That Nancy Collins Swamp Thing omnibus is gorgeous.
Nice.
But
let's check that out.
It's so good. And that's one of the rare occasions they put in that omnibus the issues that Nancy didn't write. There's like 3 or 4 issues in that run.
Oh, wow.
That she didn't write, and they put it in there. Whereas DC is obsessed with pulling issues that like there's a fill-in writer or something on like an omnibus. That Garth Ennis Hellblazer omnibus is missing 1 issue in like an unbroken like 40 or so issue run of Garth's. They're like, oh, he didn't write that one. Yoink. And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, right.
Like,
I read that the Grant Morrison JLA run did that, and because I read that it did not have the Mark Waid stuff,
none of it. Nope.
And I was like, bullshit. I was like, that is part of the run. Like Grant and Mark switched books. It wasn't like just fill-in stuff. Yeah. It was like really good stuff, and I used to get confused all the time. That story about synchronicity. With that dude that like that's totally a Grant Morrison story. Like I used to think that was Grant. And then every time I reread the run and I go, no, that was Mark Waid. That's so wild.
Yeah. Cause I didn't know that that happened. Cause I read that afterwards and that, cause I didn't know that Grant had written that Flash in there. Yeah. Those are brilliant stories. That was a really fun run.
Yeah. And it's also like, thinking that people won't care, like DC again, like thinking people won't care about the pre-crisis stuff. I mean, Marvel has a ton of Silver Age stuff in print, and it moves, and it's going out of print all the time.
Oh yeah,
they would be fine, especially Bronze Age stuff. That that stuff would move from DC, but they've trained the audience to not care about it.
Again, I really think they have. Even key issues on the spec market, like Marvel key issues from the Bronze and Silver Age, are so much more valuable than the DC ones. Now, you could obviously put that a lot on the success of the MCU compared to the DC movies, but like nobody, it's like, it's so weird. And I don't know, there is a difference sometimes in some of the covers. Like Marvel seems to pop and have more flash to it at times, but I don't know. Even I find that even like, it's so easy to sell a giant size X-Men #1, but so difficult to sell a first appearance of Brainiac. And that's wild to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, Brainiac would be like, that's an older character. Yeah. It's an older book. It's so iconic. Like, I mean, one day, hopefully they can do Brainiac in a movie and actually
was that Action 242?
Something like that. We had one at the shop. It sat there for fucking ever. It's just sat there forever. I'm like, that's the first appearance of Brainiac. Like, that's so crazy. We used to have multiple first appearance of Darkseids because nobody gave a shit until like Zack Snyder, you know? So
yeah, but and all that stuff gets weird to me too, because it's like, I don't know. I never got that collector, speculator kind of like collector. Yes, I get that. But the speculators where it's just like, I want to get these books because they're going to be worth something and this and that. And it's like, I guess like with some of these, but
we also grew up in the era where it was so hopeless. Like, you know, like living through comics in the 90s and through the 2000s, we were like, yeah, these things are never going to be worth money again. It's just never going to get back to that level. And so it's so crazy to me that we kind of are on certain things. Yeah, like the Miles Morales appearance. Holy crap. Like that's worth so much freaking money now, which is cool, I guess. But people need to collect however they want to collect. If you want to do the speculation route, that's cool. But it's seems like a really stressful way to try to make money.
Yeah.
Trying to keep up with everything.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, you know, hats off to people that do, but it's never been something I've been interested in, because when I get something, I want to keep it for myself and hang on to it. But yeah, I got a
question.
Go for it, please.
I've been wanting to ask you for about 30 minutes now, probably. How do you make a Wonder Woman book and make it work, make it impactful to the general audience? Because I feel like the general comic book audience claims to really like Wonder Woman, but I feel like they never really support Wonder Woman books that are good when they're good. You know, like, and I'm not pointing fingers at any fans, y'all. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, like, Wonder Woman seems like that character that there's a lot of vocal support, but not a lot of like putting money down on the counter. You know?
Yeah, she was Miss Marvel before Miss Marvel.
Yeah, what would make people pay attention to her?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things. I think people like there's some backwards thinking with some editors. I don't know if it's still the case now, but I know that I talked to Bill Loebs a little while back. I own a page from his run. The Wonder Woman in space is easily like that's another thing that was 6 issues. That should have been a trade right after it came out. That should be a classic story everyone talks about. It only just finally got collected last year in a fat trade of Bill Loeb's run. It is brilliant. And they cut the storyline early because a new editor took over Wonder Woman and told Bill, you can't have Wonder Woman in space because that's sci-fi and Wonder Woman's a fantasy character. It's people that think that kind of stuff that ruin these characters.
Yeah.
And, you know, absolutely destroyed that character. If his original vision was to have Wonder Woman as this space liberator liberating the galaxy from the Khans for 3 years. If they let him do that, that would have been an evergreen Simonson Thor level kind of omnibus and trades and people would be talking about it to this day.
So that is collected now, because I did listen to that interview. Because I was really excited when you interviewed him because I had read some of his Flash stuff, but I actually met him at Dragon Con in the late '80s, and he was doing that indie book that I think he created kind of all on his own. You guys mentioned in the interview, and I can't remember the name, but
yeah,
he seemed like an amazing guy, and I don't know. I definitely go back, and that sounded like a really exciting story too. And that did.
Oh yeah,
that was kind of heartbreaking that it got cut like that. I mean, because that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just.
It's handled super well, like the ending of it. Like it doesn't feel too rushed, but it's great. It's Wonder Woman is tricked into saving a cosmonaut without a clear way home. They get abducted by the Khunds and turned into slaves. And, she has to work with dominators and like other aliens to free themselves and liberate this section of the galaxy from, the alien Khunds, which were created by, Jim Shooter back when he first premiered on Legion of Superheroes. And of course, he also created the Dominators. So, it was inspired by Spartacus and some other things too. There's, a whole like I Am Wonder Woman kind of moment. And it's amazing. And the problem is we need more outside the box attempts with Wonder Woman, because I am so sick of every single person that seems to pick up Wonder Woman goes like, all right, she believes in truth and someone important lied to her, so we're going to do that. Then there's another contest, and then Ares is up to something, and Cheetah shows up, and she loses the contest, and now she has to prove she can be Wonder Woman again, and Cersei's up to something, and she's got to work with, I don't know, Wonder Girl or something to stop Cersei again, and there's Cheetah again, and let's do a Superman Wonder Woman team up issue.
Yeah.
And then they found yet another group of Amazons, and she's going to investigate, and they don't trust her at first, but she beats their leader and earns their trust, and now they're going to come to Themyscira, and it's going to be rocky at first, and then I don't know, Silver Swan shows up, and then Cheetah again, and then it turns out it was Ares the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's every fucking run of this book.
It's kind of like I don't know, I feel like the big two sometimes, and where I get kind of worn out on it a little, is that it's like they kind of rely on people like, putting these Easter eggs in so that, comic readers will go, oh yeah, I recognize that, and get some kind of familiarity with it, and then but they're not really reading anything new. You know what I mean? And that's what's kind of frustrating, with that sometimes. And that's why it's kind of hard to dive into those. But did you read the New 52, the Brian Azzarello Cliff Chiang run?
Yeah, actually, I liked that, and I don't know, I feel like I enjoyed that a lot. I have the first issue signed by both of them, and I have, that's one of the few statues I have is the Cliff Chiang designed Wonder Woman, because I awesome. Really like that one. But it's weird. I feel like everyone says, like, I don't know, everyone's insane, basically, because I feel like everyone goes, this might be controversial, but I really like this run, and everyone immediately goes and responds with, oh yeah, no, I like it too. So I'm like, I don't think it's as controversial as everyone seems to preface. Like, I know it's controversial, but it's like, no, I think we're all on board that it was a pretty solid run of that character.
At the time, I remember a lot of people thinking it was controversial, right? Mm-hmm. But I remember more people reading Wonder Woman than at any other time selling comics, and I was super excited. Like, I like the George Perez stuff, and I really like the Greg Rucka stuff. His first wave, his second wave hadn't happened yet. Sure. But I really, really, really loved that New 52 run, and I was so heartbroken when they undid like almost all of it. But now they still, I guess they're still going with the idea that she's a demigod, right? Because that's kind of cool.
Yeah, they did keep that.
they changed all the way. Like I thought it was so cool, like the way they painted Ares. You know, the way they handled the characters, the way Hades was. Like they had all this symbolism tied up into it, and it all felt so well thought out. And they gave her what I felt like Wonder Woman never had, which was a very strong supporting cast. And they didn't have to reach far. They just went to the Greek pantheon, you know, and make her more of a part of that, which I thought was super strong. And then I just didn't like where they went from that point forward. But I do like when Rucka came back in Rebirth. I thought that was pretty strong.
Sure. No, and
then they added Orion.
But you know, again, a lot of the stuff too, unfortunately, it does go back to all the greatest hits, and they've all been done before. And even some of the more solid runs since then, you're still doing the same song and dance. It's still the same like greatest hits.
Yeah,
which is a big problem, because a lot of times it's, you know, these writers coming in who were like, oh, I was really inspired by this writer from like 10 years ago, 5 or 10 years ago, who was inspired by that writer, you know, 5 or 10 years ago. And you end up getting this copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. And that's part of where I think you get the quality slip, you know, on top of all these other things like stressors on the market, you know, short staff editorial and all these things going on, you know, changes in the direct market that people aren't, you know, working through properly, all that. So now we're basically in a situation where this is multiplicity, and a lot of comic runs are on their 4th or 5th Michael Keaton.
I love the analogy.
Yeah.
Because I get that reference.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense.
I understood that reference.
No, exactly. Because, you know, if you, and I'm not saying this is the case, but if you go and it's like, oh, well, you know, Nick Spencer's Spider-Man was influenced by, you know, Dan Slott's Spider-Man, which was influenced by, you know, James Straczynski's Spider-Man, which was influenced by David Michelinie's Spider-Man, which was influenced by Roger Stern's Spider-Man, which was influenced by Jerry Conway's Spider-Man, which was, you know, and eventually you get so far out that it, you know, you're losing something each step of the way.
Yeah. Like if you just like clone the same person over and over and over, the 10th one, something's going to be off about that clone. Maybe that's a story in and of itself. You clone Wonder Woman 10 times, and the 10th clone is Wonder Zorro or whatever. Yeah. And there you go, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because, I mean, if we're doing, like, if it's like Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad were inspired by Greg Rucka, who was inspired by Greg Rucka, who was inspired by, you know...
I think Becky and Michael's run has started pretty solid. Is it Travis Moore, I think, is the artist? Like
Travis Moore is the artist.
The art is amazing. The art is amazing. But it's weird because it's a Wonder Woman that doesn't know who she is, and it's one of those amnesia stories, and she's in
That's
Valhalla.
Never been done in comics before, though.
Never. They just did that in Fortnite, Batman, the big book of the week.
Yeah, and then are you telling me there's a chance when she remembers who she is, she'll suddenly be stronger because she'll remember certain powers she may have forgotten about?
I don't know. As long as the art stays the same, I'll be down for it. That might happen, probably. Yeah, probably. Then, but I think it's pretty decent. But like, okay, so you get these two different. I think they work together because part of the fun to me of Wonder Woman and the character of Diana is this.
Sure.
This two-sided thing where she is this ambassador of peace, but she's also this like warrior goddess almost, right? Mm-hmm. And you have certain people like Zack Snyder, let's say he super leans into the warrior aspect, the 300 stuff, which is awesome. Yep. And it's great to see Wonder Woman cut off Steppenwolf's head and snap Max Lord's neck and all that kind of stuff. And it's at the same time, it's really cool to see Wonder Woman be like this symbol of hope and this force of inspiration and willing to help people out like Cheetah or Silver Swan, caring about, you know, but at the same time, like, how do you make both sides work? Because if she's just cutting off, you know, Steppenwolf's head, why is she just cut off Cheetah's head? You know, like, and you got so many people that want one or the other, but I think it's the culmination. I thought that's what made that Brian Azzarello run so awesome, was that he got the two sides combined.
He did it really well, because Wonder Woman's doing everything basically for one person, I guess technically two, but all that is willing to sacrifice everything for that. It's not the universe, it's not the world, it's not the mascara, it's not anything but that, and that's powerful.
Yeah,
that's good storytelling.
There you go. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite run of all time? Is it the Loeb run? Is it the Mod run by Denny O'Neil?
If I was to say my favorite run, it would probably be Perez through Loeb. Like, it's cheating, but like just that first 100 issues.
Gotcha.
Just the first 100 issues.
You not a Byrne fan?
I do like it. Okay. But I think you can jump off there and be satisfied,
Yeah, I probably. Because then they go into the whole like death of, isn't that where it goes to the death of Wonder Woman? Hippolyta takes over. Isn't that around that era? Somewhere like, right?
Yeah, but then after Byrne, Eric Luke wrote that book for about 2 years, and it's never been collected. Ever.
Should it?
Here's the thing.
Because it's hard to collect issue-wise, right? Because it had Adam Hughes covers, right?
That's the one. It had Yannick Patlick, or I messing up his name, was the artist on that run.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And it's like it introduced the Hindu pantheon to Wonder Woman.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's never been collected ever. They skip from John Byrne right to Phil Jimenez.
Yeah.
And it's weird. And again, this is going back to how I hate how DC collects things. The Bill Loeb stuff is only in trade. The John Byrne stuff in print now is only in standard size hardcover. The Phil Jimenez run is in omnibus format.
Isn't that weird?
So you're just like, if you had your bookshelf and you were trying to keep it like kind of consistent, you're like, oh my God. And like,
yeah. Like when they change the trade dress in the middle of a run and you're just like,
yeah.
Or you have that one trade where the volume number is just up slightly and you're like,
yeah,
no.
I have Legion Archives number 6.
Does that do that?
That's the one where the logo is way further down and it completely messes up the shelf.
Oh, I hate that. That's so infuriating.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
No, it really is. But the thing that kills me about the George Perez Wonder Woman omnibuses, they did this for the Jurgens Thor omnibus too. They do the first volume, no number, and then 2 and 3.
Oh man. Man, like, next time you're on, you're gonna have to have your omnibuses behind you. Clearly, it seems like you got quite a few. That's awesome. You'll look like Jim Mint Collectibles. You just have this wall of omnibuses behind you. I only have a few omnibuses.
I'll show you that Nancy Collins omnibus then.
That looks like a beautiful, beautiful slipcover.
It's beautiful, and when you take off the dust jacket here,
oh,
wow,
gorgeous!
It is a gorgeous book, and yeah, the art, it's all the original colors.
Oh,
so it's cool. Not that like crazy recoloring they've done on other books.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And the thing that kills me with this too, everything's killing me. I understand that. I'm speaking hyperbolically. I'm not dying. I mean, I'm not dying in a way that none of us are all also dying. But,
right.
But this Nancy Collins run was never collected until last year.
I've never read it.
It is easily one of the best Swamp Thing runs. Hands down. Easily. Huh. If you want to read something after the Alan Moore run that you're like, I want something that's like good, that's maybe a little different than Alan Moore, you got to read this run. It's so crazy good. She was living in Louisiana at the time, and she pulls a lot of that into the book. It's so fucking good. I read this in 2 sittings.
Okay. Wow.
I'm not kidding.
That's impressive.
You know, I was just like,
typically rather dense, right? So,
yeah, this is about 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
This is about 38 or something issues, something like that, 30 something issues. And there's, a couple of annuals and things like that in here. But
so did that come right after the Alan Moore run, or
it was after the
Rick?
It was after the Doug Wheeler run.
Yeah, because Rick Veitch or Veitch, right? He was after Moore.
He was after Moore, and then Doug Wheeler was for a little bit, and then it was Nancy, and she's still to this day the only woman who ever wrote Swamp Thing. But she introduced Jade, who was another protector of the green, and it's her the character of Jade's backstory is based on a family member of Nancy's, and there's a whole bit because if people don't care about minor spoilers to a Swamp Thing run from 30 years ago, this is where she splits up Abby and Swamp Thing. But it was because DC was like, we decided they shouldn't be together anymore, so you're gonna have to kill Abby. And she was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to have them split up and break up. And she did that. And Alan Moore actually called her to tell her, like, good on you. That was a good choice to break him up.
Huh.
It's
nice of Alan to have something nice to say about a creator working on a book after him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that one out.
Yeah.
That's not the Jade, like Alan Scott's daughter Jade, is it?
No.
Okay.
But DC, Marvel to a lesser extent, I think, but DC has always been very bad at being like, oh, we have this character. It's not that character. It's they just have the same names. I mean, Marvel does too a bit with what was it, the Punisher?
The original Punisher.
The original Punisher, and then there was the original Venom with 2 M's that was a Black Panther villain. So they do a little bit of that too.
Yeah. And they got their own Scarecrow.
They sure do.
Which is weird.
It is weird.
Well,
what were you saying?
I was going to bring it back a little bit. You mentioned 7 Soldiers of Victory, which is one of my all-time favorite stories.
I love it too.
And by Grant. In that new X-Men retrospective you did with Purge, I think you mentioned that was originally going to be an adventure story.
Yeah.
Is there any more details like around how he was going to work with that, or they were going to work with that?
I don't know if it was early enough. It might have been too early in the process, but basically part of why Grant left Marvel as well was because here's the thing. And we saw this with Bendis at DC. These companies end up getting so trigger happy to snipe a creator, and they got him, that basically Marvel was so into the idea of shoving it in DC's face that they got Grant. Yeah. But then they realized, we have to publish Grant's ideas. And then things started to sour, which is also, again, big part of why Grant left, because kept pitching ideas. They'd be like, no, we don't want to do that. Because the original rollout for Grant was like, Grant's Marvel now, and Grant's gonna. This is This was
like when Kirby went to DC. It was like that big of a deal.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Grant really barely did anything else at Marvel. I mean, there was that Fantastic Four 1, 2, 3, 4, which I also liked.
I like that. I love Marvel Boy. I love Marvel Boy. Marvel Boy is the most Grant Morrison book that he did while he was at Marvel.
Yeah, I think Grant got to do very little else there because they just kept turning everything down. Because again, they were like, "Oh no, we got
Marvel's
Grant."
I don't think Marvel's a good fit for Grant, and I think Grant admits that in his in the book Super Gods.
Yeah.
And Marvel is, I don't know. I think that there's plenty at Marvel that Grant could have done. But you're right, it did sour, and Grant was going through a really, really rough time. The death of their father, and I don't know. It's really interesting to look at that time. And Grant, when Grant went back to DC, it was announced at like San Diego Comic-Con, and like Joe Quesada didn't know, and like came up to Grant and was like, "What the fuck is going on?" And are you surprised, Grant? I recently saw an interview, and Grant was talking about how they were always changing the ideas of New X-Men and what he could do, and that we're going to take him back to the uniforms because marketing and licensing, they want that. And it seemed like Grant was very unhappy at Marvel, and I think it's better that Grant went back to DC for a while.
Absolutely, no, for sure. And I mean that's what Grant's best work is.
Yeah, that on that Seven Soldiers, the reason why I was asking that is because like I can't imagine that with even B-list Avengers characters working as well as it did in the.
You could imagine it with like
them. Yeah,
you could imagine
them being able
to
use the DC characters. So go ahead.
You could imagine it like Black Knight instead of Shining Knight. You could imagine Hercules, and I don't know, U.S. Agent instead of Guardian. Wouldn't that be a crazy U.S. Agent story? It would have been the best U.S. Agent story ever.
Yeah, it would have been. But they were able to use some of the cooler, obscure Kirby characters too, which because at least 3 of them are from the Kirby runs. You had Clarion pulled from the Demon, and you had the Guardian, from the those, and then the Mr. Miracle, and that Clarion one really hit me pretty hard. Like I actually read it when I was dating who became my wife, and I was sharing pictures from that because that art is so solid. But I actually got an original from Sue Lee of Clarion from that run there.
Very cool.
But it also like I went and because they went back and mined some of the Justice League stuff from the early 70s actually, because that Nebula, like the big villain, actually came from a 3-issue Justice League of America run that went back and because that was actually a pretty good storyline that I probably wouldn't completely passed over, that had a cool because it did involve the the Seven Soldiers too and all that and everything. I don't know, that was a very powerful run. I'm really glad they were able to do that at DC.
And I loved Clarion in that, and the problem with that is that made me love the character, and the character isn't in a lot of very good things.
Well, so then I saw Young Justice kind of shortly after that, and I was like, oh, Clarion, and I was like, this is a completely different Clarion. Completely different.
I like seeing Clarion in Young Justice. I like the cartoon, but it's after reading that, it was like, oh, I really want to like dive in more, but there's not a lot of good comics with Clarion, which is unfortunate. Or like where Clarion has a lot to do.
Yeah, because the last one I know the last series he got, I think I made it 2 issues in, and I was like, I don't I don't see where this is going. Yeah. So but those bookend issues too by J.H. Williams are, I mean, those are just masterpieces and in the form and everything. So
J.H.'s career is just incredible. I mean, starting at Milestone with Death Wish, the Batman stuff he's done, Promethea. I mean, he's great.
Oh, that's one of my favorites of all time.
It's a shame that Wonder Woman isn't usually that good. Going back to what we were talking about.
Oh yeah. I guess I haven't picked up that new run, but I did read the that 2-issue one. I think, I don't know who wrote it, but Layla Del Duca did the art, where it was Superman and Wonder Woman. That one, I really had a good time reading that one.
Yeah, my favorite thing recently was probably the Wonder Woman Dead Earth.
Oh yeah,
because that was different enough. And I really like. I came a little late onto the Daniel Warren Johnson train, but I really like that one. And then I read Beta Ray Bill, which I like, but why make it a King in Black tie-in? That was so stupid. And it was clearly an afterthought that they clearly like just changed dialogue and did like some Photoshop to make it a tie-in. Like it's like you gotta stop doing that.
They didn't even market it as a tie-in, though, really.
Yeah, it should never have been a tie-in. Like the reason someone picks up a Daniel Warren Johnson book if it's from the big two is because they shouldn't have to know what's going on in day-to-day continuity. And so that was just like, just what a needless fumble out the gate. It's like you got Daniel Warren Johnson and you're just like, let's tie it into an event that's going to be over after the first issue's out. Like, what are you doing? It's so, why are you doing this to me, comics? Why? Like, what did I do?
Joe, this is actually an intervention. Do you even like comics? Like, they seem to bring you a lot of pain. No, but a lot of joy as well.
Oh, yeah.
Well, hey, I was gonna real quick on the. I know, we were talking about editing and editorial influences and everything like that, and you've been, as Robbie was mentioning, a editor on several books, and so do you feel like you can be edited anymore, or do you claim that you edit your own books?
Oh no, you absolutely need an editor. Anyone who says they don't need an editor needs an editor.
Yeah.
I have an editor on another unannounced project that hopefully will be announced in the next few months that we're wrapping up the 3rd issue on, and gives great notes. I make changes based on those notes. I don't necessarily make all the changes, but or I'm able to answer questions in a way that makes it be like, okay, well, sure, do that then. But it's important. Every single writer and artist, there's a lot of times where you get pages back and you're like, you need an editor to look at it and be like, this person's like, there's got to be art continuity.
Yeah.
And when you're behind the scenes, you catch a lot of art mistakes. Just little things. But what was it? What was the famous one a couple of years ago with the Batgirl issue with the bathtub in front of the door?
What?
Yeah, so there was a Batgirl issue where it was drawn in a way where there was a bathtub in front of a door.
Like not in the bathroom?
Yeah, I guess the bathtub's in the bathroom, but it's like blocking the door, so no one would ever be able to get in.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
like they're trying to do a shot. It's like they're trying to do a shot this way. The door's here, the tub's here, but it looks like it's like that or something.
Yeah, it looked like the tub is in front of the door.
Yeah,
just weird stuff.
You live in New York, right? There are apartments like that, right? Where it's just.
Yes, but that's probably not what they were going for. However, you need that stuff because I need an editor to ask me things, because you need to give your script in so they can be like, okay, well, why is this character doing this? And every once in a while, you go like, you know what? My answer isn't good enough to justify this. I'll change it.
Gotcha.
You got to be able to do that. You can't. No, you shouldn't. No one should be arrogant doing this stuff, and especially the more issues you do, the more you gotta go back and be like, is this continuity? Is this lining up with what I set up? And you need an editor to be like, hey, you set this up in issue 1 and it's issue 3 and you haven't mentioned this yet. Maybe you want to mention it now?
Yeah.
Okay, you need that kind of stuff. I've read a lot of indie comics that don't have editors, and it always shows, no matter how good they think they are.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, and I was actually being kind of sarcastic with my question.
No.
I did not pick up that you were arrogant by any means. I wasn't.
Oh, I did not take it that way. I used it as an excuse to babble on and on, unedited.
There we go. Yeah, I need an editor too.
Who are some of the better? Who are some fantastic editors you've worked with?
Oh, geez. You know, one editor I really enjoyed working on. I'm trying to think. Like, I'm doing something with Noah Shorma right now, who was an intern at Paper Cuts and has done some freelance editing. And oh my God, he'll really send notes. Like, not like it's not like you know, like oh, change this, change that. You know, it'll be like a big, like, you'll get a highlight and then it'll just be like, you know, ask the question. And then it'll be like, because this is what's got me thinking of this. And it'll be, well, you know, go on and on and on. Which is good. It's a good thing. It's helped improve this particular book. You know, Chris Fernandez over at Mad Cave. It's been great. It's been really easy. The way I write scripts there is I do a page breakdown first, just a sentence or two on what happens on every page. That's so that way we can try to avoid the heavier notes going forward, which has been which is great, because then it's like, you're spending too much time on this, and you know, cut that. This needs to be expanded more. And when you do something like that, you end up not having to deal with as many notes after, because you worked out the bigger problems early on. So so now we're getting into the nitpicky kind of stuff. Then I'll do panel breakdowns before I do the dialogue pass. So that way, again, it's like, well, do we need this panel? Or like this would work better if you cut this panel, just did this as a wide shot, or you're looking for too much action here. Why don't you break this up over a few other panels? And you know what? Because we're doing that, now that I think about it, why don't we bump this to another page, and maybe we can, you know, you have some dead air over here that can be condensed, you know, like that kind of stuff. So Chris has been great with that. You know, again, Adrian at Vault. There was only one note or one thing, and it was in issue 2 in the bridge scene that I pushed back on, and everything else was just spot on. You know,
like, no, Adrian, I refuse to be edited on the bridge scene.
Yeah, it was basically, it was just like this one note, and that was it. But yeah, no, and he was good with that, and we'd make the time for, you know, calls for clarity and stuff like that.
Nice.
But yeah, all that worked. I'm trying to think, you know, I mean, I worked with you know, Eric Palicki on Deadbeats, and we're doing a follow-up that should be up on, you know, Kickstarter soon.
Whose sister is Mockingbird, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like,
and his sister gets got in that first John Wick movie.
Oh, spoilers! I haven't seen it yet. We're doing it for Action Fest this year. Thanks, Joe. We're changing the schedule. I'm not watching. It's over now. I'm just kidding.
Damn.
She gets got. That's terrible.
Yeah,
I was really looking forward to that
Mockingbird
Mockingbird show. I was looking really forward to that Mockingbird show that never happened, but
not as much as she was. But
poor, right? Wonder Woman, Mockingbird. Damn, someone cast her as a superhero, please. Jesus.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, and, you know, we'll edit each other, but that's a little more casual. You know, but yeah, I've been lucky to work with some good editors, to talk and know some good editors.
So if Big 2 called, right? Let's say DC called you, and they're like, you know, Joe, we want your help. Would you rather take a position at DC as a writer or an editor, or at Marvel or something like that? What do you feel you would be able to accomplish more change about all these issues that we've been talking about all these issues that we love and hate, right?
Yeah.
What would you think could affect more change as an editor or as a writer?
It all depends. I mean, there's positives and negatives to both. I think as a writer, you get a bit more of a soapbox. You get if your writing goes over well, or the comic you're doing goes over well, the team gets the credit. No one cares about the editors. I do. People like us and people that are more in the industry do. It's hard enough to get people, even at the shop level, that go to the shops to care about the writer or the artist, let alone the editor. Like, forget that. Like, we're
just trying to get letterer credits on the cover. Like, let's not talk about the editors right now.
Yeah. So I think being a creative on a book like that, like, the way things go, like Tom King, while he was the main writer on Batman, had more sway than editorial. Donny Cates has a lot more sway than he would be if he was like associate editor of the Avengers line. You know what I mean? So there's that. But if you were an editor and you were in a position where you could work well with the, office politics and this and that, and could affect some real change in the long term, you might have more of an impact. No one would necessarily care about that impact. And, I mean, people would barely retweet your obituary in CBR, but it's
that's a dark way to look at it, but truth. It is true, because when I met Fabian Nicieza, and he was like, I was like, you were an editor too. He's like, yeah, but nobody cares about the editor. He's like, nobody ever cares about the editor. I was like, you're right. Nobody does. I was that kid. The first name I ever recognized was, aside from Stan Lee, was John Byrne. Sure. And then Jim Lee. And, you start recognizing these names. And the first, then I started paying attention to editors. And I think that was because I was reading Fantastic Four, in which Tom DeFalco was the writer with Paul Ryan as the artist. And he was also editor-in-chief. And then I was like, yo, what's editor-in-chief? And I was like, I want to be editor-in-chief of Marvel. Nowadays, I don't know if I'd take that job. I would. Marvel, I'm available. You need some help, CB? You tired? Just call me.
Yeah,
y'all won't like what I have to say.
No, but you, again, like you as a retailer, on average, wouldn't you say, the average person that comes into the shop, especially people that are just browsing, if they don't like have a pull, they probably don't know the creatives. They know what they like. They'll look at a cover, or they'll look and they'll see they'll open it, skim, look at the art, and they'll care if it's a character they like and if they like the art.
Yeah. The ones that stick around eventually start paying attention to the creators.
Oh yeah.
And you always wind up making that jump at some point, being like, oh, this person wrote this book, and like art, everybody, we all like writing's the same way. We like different styles, but like art is incredibly subjective. But like once you really latch onto a writer, and you'll start jumping from character to character, and then maybe jump into indie work. And that's that's how I work. Right. So like someone, oh, you're a big, like, say, Captain America fan. Oh, that's really cool. You love the Winter Soldier stuff. That's really cool. Let's get you read this. Read this Iron Fist book. Oh, you like that? Read this Daredevil book by Ed Brubaker. You like that? All right, check out Fatale and Criminal. And then all of a sudden, what? And you're like, all right, I got some other things for you to check out. And then when you get into that world, you're hooked. You're hooked, I think, 100%. So paying attention to the creators is important, I think.
Yeah, I think it is. I'm a little biased, but I think it's I think it's important. I mean, Lord knows these creators are desperately trying to get your attention on Twitter. So
yes, they are. You should pay attention.
They have to do their own promotion, right?
Yeah, right? I mean,
which is kind of crazy to me, but
someone out there is eventually going to make bank by creating a pricing structure for promotion for some of these creators, and just like advice that is really going to help them. And I feel bad saying this because I am their peer, and I too use the social media, but there are some creators, I'm not naming names, folks, don't get excited, that they'll use Twitter, and sometimes you'll be scrolling and you'll see a tweet and you'll be like, did you sign the 7th contract for the best gig you'll ever have this year already? Like, there's always like these tweets of like, I can't say anything, I'm vague tweeting, but I just signed a contract for a dream project and I can't wait to show you. And you swear, you're like, you didn't you tweet that like 3 weeks ago? And then like 2 weeks before that, and then like a week before that. Like, I've read this tweet from you so many that, is this the same project? Is this
it was issue
another
2.
project?
They were talking about issue 1, then it was issue 2, and then they were talking about issue 3.
Like some of that stuff, it's just like, don't stress yourself out tweeting some of that stuff, because the real grind is going to be before FOC. So don't start stressing yourself out with the like, I just got the contract in my inbox. I'm signing the contract. They signed the contract on their end. I just got the dates on when my scripts are due. I just submitted my outline. It's like, enough. It's okay. You don't have to tweet the entire process. Don't worry. Like, if I was already going to buy your book, I was going to buy it. It's fine.
Yeah. We're already sold. Calm down. Let us know when we got some preview pages.
Yeah.
Exactly. FOC's got to be very stressful for comic creators that got to do their own self-promotion, because I get stressed out every Monday when Brian's like sending me a list like, is it too late for me to get this?
I sound just like that when I do it too.
Yeah.
I'm in a hurry. Yeah. Like, is it too late?
And it doesn't matter, no matter, and this is for anyone who's doing books on the direct market, no matter how many times you tweet or post on Facebook or talk to people, you'll eventually talk to a friend before the book comes out. And I'm saying this from personal experience from like yesterday, that they'll be like, oh, when's your new book coming out? And I'll be like, May 5th. Like, oh, I'm going to try to get that. It's like, all right. No matter how much you do anything, it's going to happen. So that should take the stress off you like a little bit. Go like, well, at least no matter what I do, someone's going to miss this. So,
yeah. Well, the one thing that kind of stresses me out a little bit about the FOC, I mean, not, it's that, sometimes I want to buy an issue 1 to try it before I want to get, more of the books. And so, and sometimes I will miss that FOC. I won't even see it, but then it's like, issue 2 sales tend to be even lower. And like, you got to kind of, you can end up missing an issue 2, and stuff like that.
Not if you have a good shop, Brian. Not if you have a good shop that supports the books that you like.
That is true.
I say that as Brian missed his foil cover of Many Deaths of Layla Starr. Sorry about that, Brian. I feel terrible about that.
I don't know why.
Brian's a cover A guy. Brian's a cover A guy, and I was like, maybe he'll want the foil, but he's a cover A guy.
The complaint about stuff that happens in the big 2 comics, the reason why I'm a cover A guy is because I would buy a Daredevil comic that would have, a scroll on it from another issue because they were running a scroll event. And because it would just be whatever variant's thrown in the box, which I don't know. Maybe that's nitpicky, but I'm always annoyed if the cover of a comic has nothing to do with the inside.
Oh yeah, like a cover just has like Irving Forbush on it or something like that. Yeah. That month it's Irving Forbush month.
If they did an Irving Forbush month, I would buy every single one of those. Okay.
Okay, I might actually do that. Yes.
But, yeah, there's exceptions. There's exceptions. I only get so mad about the bit. So, yeah.
But, no, I love Brian's thing because he's always like, if you don't order by FOC, I won't get it. I'm like, it's not like that necessarily, Brian, but we'll get you the books you want, man.
Okay, I appreciate it. Well, hey, Joe, I did want to thank you about because last time we talked, you brought up that City of Crime, that Batman run, and went out and got it. I know I've already let you know how much I loved it, but man, I don't know. It was absolutely brilliant. And actually, like, my favorite issue was kind of, probably about a third, fourth of the way through, where he was getting the lay of the land. That issue where he was, seeing that how brutal the city was in that region. I mean, that was so intense. Like I was sweating. I was getting mad. I mean,
it's so
it was insane.
It's so good. And if you like ask people on the street, just like, did you know that David Latham did Batman and it's incredible? They'd be like, whoa, what the fuck? The Stray Bullets got, oh my God, I got to read, it's like, what do they do?
Exactly.
Again, this is like marketing here. Like there's a whole swath of people. Like the amount of times I've brought up City of Crime to people who are like big David Latham, they're like, I had no idea you worked on it. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it until you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Which it just sounds criminal.
It is. We truly live in a city of crime.
Yeah, we do.
Ooh.
We do.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow.
Why does 62 keep asking me to ask you about City of Bruce? I don't know what that is.
That's a bit I did with Perch, where we have bad pitches that we'll do videos that are just horrible pitches. And one of my pitches in the first one we did was it's a story where we play up the Playboy aspect of Bruce, and it turns out he has sired most of the population of Gotham at this point.
Okay, I get it. Awesome. I like that. That sounds
and
fine.
You see, it raises the stakes because it's personal for like basically
on a lot of levels.
It makes sense because why is he stopping all these muggers and stuff like that? Because those are his kids.
He cares so much. He's just like, do right, children. It's like Jupiter's Legacy, but like Bruce Wayne, right?
And that's why he can't kill, right? Because they're his
exactly. He can't kill. They're his children. Even makes Barbara, sense. Don't tell Gordon.
Ooh.
No.
Well, they changed that, right? Because originally it was his adopted daughter, right? And now I think they've changed it. So, or maybe it was. I think they changed it multiple times.
They change everything multiple times until people give up, which is the problem. That's part of why people don't even attempt to read some of the greatest comics DC has ever done in the pre-crisis era, because again, they've been trained like, if it happened before the most recent crisis, it's not worth it. And now they're like doing that weird thing with like Infinite Frontier and stuff where they're like, what if everything matters? Will you buy it then? Like,
but then like they haven't really quite leaned into what that means even yet.
No.
People are still confused. They're like, so it's still a multiverse? What's the difference? It's like, there's not just 52. Like, I guess that's the biggest difference.
You have the multiverse, but then you have the omniverse, and you also have the linear verse.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And the linear verse is the regular universe, but everyone ages very slowly.
Okay. So it's like the scaled timeline type thing.
Yeah, but for everyone, so like everyone's like magic, I guess.
It's weird. And then I also get the idea that there's infinite past and infinite futures. Like that whole hyper time thing has been brought back in, which was a concept that's never quite I never think it quite crystallized, enough to really be understandable as much as say a multiverse or an omniverse, which was just Grant's idea at the end of Multiversity, that there was a multiverse of multiverses.
Yeah. And at this point, there's so many like members of the Flash family. I think every other person has access to the Speed Force at this point, because why the hell not? There shouldn't be anything unique about a superhero.
One of the and in the new Bendis Justice League, one of the bits is that Naomi finds out that she's not just from another Earth. She's not from our multiverse. And they're like, what does that even mean? And I'm like, y'all, literally just death metal just wrapped up. You should know what that means. There's something outside of whatever.
That just makes me want to hurl myself off a bridge.
By the way, the 10 pages of Justice League Dark are amazing in that book. So is that worth $5? Probably not. So hopefully they'll put it in trade on its own. Be nice to have a Justice League Dark by Rom V Omnibus one day. That'd be super cool.
I like that after we talked about how bad they are collecting things, that we're hinging our hope on that they'll collect that story properly.
Instead of not just being like, here's Justice League Volume 1, and it's going to be like 100 pages of Bendis and then 50 pages of Rom V.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's more likely what'll happen.
Yeah, you're right. So, DC needs somebody better in their collections department. I'll tell you that. If somebody that's in the chat that's a mod right now will throw out Joe's links to his social media. He's active on Twitter, I believe. Do you have an IG?
I'm on IG, but mostly for people to tag me. It's at Corallo Joe instead of at Joe Corallo. But yes, so people,
mixing it up.
I had to do it because people just kept being like, I have to tag you in something. So I'm like, fine, I'll do this thing so you can tag me.
Nice. Okay.
Because after everything I said about Twitter, I'm clearly loving that platform. So
yeah. And also, if somebody wants to throw out a link to the Previews World BECSTAR page or whatever, that would be super cool as well. Joe's got lots of excitement coming up, and guarantee this, Joe will probably be seen on this channel sooner than you think.
It's just very possible.
It's very possible. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a surprise Joe visit coming up very, very soon. And those of you that watch PCP Movie Night should be on the lookout for that. I will just say that. So, Brian, is there any final thoughts you have for Joe or for the audience tonight?
Well, Joe, I also wanted to thank you for the recommendation on that 100 gecs, much to the chagrin of my wife and my teenage daughter. Can't stand them. But it's been on heavy rotation over here at my house.
Excellent. They're great. Great, wonderful band. Also, I should probably mention that I have a 4-page story in that Yule anthology that's on Kickstarter right now. It's a Christmas themed horror anthology. And
sold. You didn't even have to say anything else. Like Christmas themed horror? Hell yeah.
Yeah, my story is on Saturnalia. It's great. I really enjoy doing it. But yeah, it's Yule Dreadful Tales for the holiday season. There's a week left, and we need about 7K more. So spread the word. Justin Jordan has a story in it that's drawn by Val Halverson of Finger Guns fame.
Nice.
Yeah. So
lots of Kickstarters to check out, everybody. Some really good ones right now.
There are way too many Kickstarters right now, which is, because I'm back in a few, and then I'm just like, another one.
I got hit. Yeah, I got hit with 3 today that were successfully funded today.
Nice.
My phone kept buzzing, and I was like, oh, whoo, that's getting to be a bill.
And you're like, I forgot about that. I didn't plan for that. Damn it.
Yeah.
Why did I want the deluxe hardcover with the sketch?
Right. I am with you there. It keeps happening, but I backed Young Offenders 1 through 3. I think that's still going. Yeah, it's got 12 days left on that. Basically, whenever Marco Stack puts something up on Kickstarter, I always back that. I really like that guy. Anything that Mark Bouchard does. They did It Killed Luke the other month. Still waiting on that. But Marco Stack, he sends the stuff right away. I've backed 2 of his Kickstarters so far, and I've gotten the rewards within like 6 weeks of the campaign ending. So he does a great, which is great because that balances out like backing something like the John Sable like omnibus edition that I'm still waiting for, which was supposed to be shipping out like this month, but it's probably not till this summer. But it's okay because John Sable's worth it.
He's worth it, y'all.
John Sable, like that's to me, like that's with Mike Grell, it's like that and Legion are the two things I really like. Yeah, and the Green Arrow and some other stuff. But
yeah, his Green Arrow is pretty solid, Joe.
Yeah.
Come on, DC fan. Oh, my bad. It's post-crisis. My bad. I'm sorry.
But the other thing too with Crisis, and the other thing with Crisis is they complained so much that they had to do this because Superman was getting too complicated. And I defy anyone to read a Superman story pre-Crisis that is anywhere as unintelligible as like Death of Superman era Superman stuff. And that's only 7 years after Crisis before it was completely off the rails.
Yeah, it didn't
compared to what was it? Almost 50 years of Superman comics before that.
You are right about that, because it wasn't too long after Crisis where they're like, shit, we got to do 0 year to even some of this out. And then they're like, fuck, we better do something now. we done fucked it up again with Kingdom Come. What are we going to do?
Lex Luthor's put his brain in his sons and Supergirl's another alien pretending to be Supergirl.
They always do this shit. When Marvel did Ultimate, right? The Ultimate line, like it was super clean and concise at first, and it got so goddamn overly complex so quickly. So quickly. So yeah.
Well, you can go for the quick on the Kickstarter. So you're going to do the follow-up to Deadbeats on Kickstarter as well?
Yeah.
Is that the plan? Okay.
Yeah, it should be towards the end of May. We got to let some of these other Kickstarters cycle through.
You don't want too many all at once.
Yeah, I mean, it'll. I mean, we're probably in it through like October or something with the amount of things that everyone's going to be launching a Kickstarter. Like everyone, it's crazy. I know Erica Schultz has a Kickstarter coming up. Like, I'm pretty sure Eric Palicki has another Kickstarter coming up. Like, it's a lot of the stuff. And then
it seems like Aubrey Sitterson's doing one every couple months.
Oh, and, right.
And David Pepose probably got another one coming. So.
Oh yeah.
And Justin Richards has one right now.
Right? So duh. Justin Richards.
Silent Night. One. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was good. You had him on last week. That was
we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
I caught some of that, but yeah, no, it's good. It's a good time to like comics sometimes.
Yeah, right. Kickstarter is also fun because you can back something, get surprised when it gets taken out of your bank account, and then get surprised when it shows up at your door months later. Mm-hmm. Like one day you come home and you're like, holy shit, it's a Spawn figure.
Yeah.
Like, awesome.
There you go.
I forgot.
That is awesome.
I forgot about that. I didn't forget about my Spawn figure. I was tracking that shit. I was like, where's it at? Anyway.
It's kind of like how Image seemed to forget about Spawn for a while, and then they were like, wow, we don't have The Walking Dead and Saga right now. What do we got? Spawn. It's not to be too cynical, but that's totally what happened.
That is totally what happened, but I'm happy that it happened because last year I made the decision to be a Spawn fan, and my life got better, to be honest. So
there you go. Yeah. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's interesting that, Image seemed to like look in and go like, okay, well, we need something.
Yeah. Well, you had a lot of movement too, right? You had a lot of people getting just kind of fed up with the big two. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of people getting fed up with the price increases. And Spawn is still $2.99. And you're like, if Spawn can deliver a $2.99 book, if Todd can do it, I know Marvel and DC could do it. And if you want to make $3.99 books, and if Vault and Aftershock and Boom and Scout and Mad Cave can give us $3.99 books with good paper quality, why can't Marvel? Like, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You start you're starting like, So I think it's important to, if you don't like Spawn, that's fine. But it's important to celebrate Spawn for like being $2.99. That's really cool. The day that he goes to $3.99, it's going to break so many people's hearts. They're going to feel so betrayed. Like it will be an utter like has to be done decision, and people will just be like, "What the hell?" Anyway, Spawn's wild and fun, and it's ridiculous. And I know some of the movies Joe likes, so he understands what I'm saying.
I absolutely get that. I enjoyed the Spawn SNES game. I played that a lot.
Oh, really? Yeah.
That was fun.
The Game Boy one, though. The Game Boy one is really bad.
Yeah, no.
Why did they even... They were just porting fucking everything back then. Anyway.
They really were. The Garfield game was fun, too.
Oh, I've never played the Garfield game.
I played the Garfield game on Game Gear.
I'm going to write that down. Oh, Game Gear. Sucking lives of batteries like nobody else. That thing was crazy awesome, though.
It was great to have a portable system that, like, weighed like a brick that you had to keep plugged in.
See, I didn't have that plug, man. I would just run out of batteries and be like, come on, my Power Rangers game's dead. Anyway, we're out. Joe, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
We really do appreciate it. We're looking forward to having you on the channel again very, very soon.
I'm looking forward to it too.
All right, Brian, we're looking forward to having you again on the channel too sometimes. And the last thing I do want to ask you, Joe, is how do you like to prepare your eggs? It's a bit here that we do now.
Lately, I'm glad you asked. Lately, what I do is I like to make omelets. Usually, I'll treat myself to like a 3-egg omelet like once a week, maybe. Nice. And I like to I dice up some onions and fry them up in the pan first before I, make my concoction of, the 3 eggs. I put some milk in. I also put in cayenne pepper, chili lime powder, and garlic.
Interesting.
With the milk and and I'll either dice up some ham or I'll put a few strips of bacon all diced in. Put that in the pan, and I've gotten pretty good. Fold them pretty nice. Not really any breakup. And then I get some of that Frank's hot sauce and I put it all on it before I dive in.
That sounds delicious.
It's really
I think I want to go have an omelet now. I don't have any eggs, though. I might have to go to the store. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. Everybody go buy BECSTAR when it comes out May 5th. Yes. It is awesome. A great sci-fi tale that I know that a lot of you out there in the PCP Army are really going to enjoy. So, Brian, Joe, PCP Army, we thank you so much. And